Hi,
Hey, what do you say, Paul?
not too much.
We're streaming live to YouTube right now, so this meeting will be broadcast on YouTube as well.
Awesome.
I was able to get the stream working, so
Good. Hmm. Do you know if Trevor's going to do this tonight?
he is. Yep, I just talked to him on the phone.
Okay. Just unplugged myself.
Hi, Paul.
All those numbers. Hi, Tony.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Good. Yeah. I'm doing good. Raring to go here.
Me too.
Better than last time. Better than last time. I at least have my computer up and running. I started it at 2:00 today just to make sure.
That's okay, Tony. We understand.
Of independents who couldn't imagine crossing over to support a Democrat. They fear Joe may turn sharp left and leave them behind. I don't believe that.
Many of the ideas we fought for, that just a few years ago were considered radical, are now mainstream.
Remember, that was within about 45 minutes where Senator Sanders then listed the number of things that he says Joe Biden came their way, meaning the progressive way.
I think that was one of the more unfortunate aspects of the lineup of having John Kasich saying, "Don't worry, the party is not turning left," followed by Bernie Sanders talking about and exulting in all the many ways that the party has turned left, from steps toward Medicare for all to basically the Green New Deal. And, you know, John Kasich, it was always understood he was going to get rolled out of this. He's been a longtime Trump critic. I don't think he's ever really got over losing that nomination battle. And he was going to say pretty much whatever they asked him to say. I don't think he really believes that the party hasn't turned left. The question is whether or not this convention, which there was a big effort on Monday night to suggest that there was a lot of moderates in the Democratic Party. Don't worry about our policy agenda. The question is, can you really convince Americans of that? And how good can Republicans do getting that point across to undecided voters?
Good evening, everybody.
Hey there, Dave. Long time no see. Yeah. Yeah, you saw it right in the Okay, good deal. All right, bye.
Hello.
Hello, Danny.
How we doing?
We're doing all right. How you?
Good. Ready for another exciting night.
Yep.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Dan Solschenberger. How are you doing?
Hey, good. Do you need me in the meeting tonight? I looked
I
at the
don't.
agenda. I didn't see much on.
I don't think so. I think you're okay.
All right. Well, if you need anything, just text me. I'll be around. I can chime in if you have
Okay.
questions or anything else.
All right, will do.
All right. Good deal.
Thanks, Dan.
Hey, thanks. Talk to you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
John Rolfe, is that you that just called in?
Yep, that's
Okay.
Howdy, Brent.
Hello, everyone. Mike, Corey,
Has joined.
Jerry Weber.
Hi, Trevor.
Has joined.
The gentleman. Mark Cross.
Has joined.
Rod Vogel.
Has joined.
Hey, John.
Lori Cross.
Has joined.
I have 6 p.m. on the nose if everyone is here. Anybody missing, Andrew? Can you tell?
No, Your Honor, I think we're good.
Marty's gone.
Marty, I don't think is going to be able to make it, Your Honor.
Right.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Well, if that being the case, then I guess we will go ahead and get started. Roll call, please, Tony.
Bowman,
Here.
Barner,
Here.
Schnorr, Weller,
Here.
Brightman,
Here.
All right. Thank you.
Has
Please
joined.
please take a moment for silent prayer. Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thanks, guys, for the patience and me getting back into this, but hopefully we'll start going a little smoother here. I would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as amended with the one addition in the consent agenda and 2 amendments in new business.
Barner, so move. Weller, second. Bowman.
Right, I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Tony.
Brightman,
Yes.
Varner,
Yes.
Weller,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
All right, thank you. First on the agenda is a public hearing for increasing the franchise fees on the electric utilities from 1% to 2%. Did you want to comment on this, Andrew?
I can, Your Honor. We discussed this during the budget session. that the enactment of franchise fees in Clinton affected our local option sales tax that we received from the electric utilities in Clinton. We received a portion of that 1% local option sales tax. That was about $40,000 in local option sales tax revenue that we would be losing. Therefore, putting a 2% fee on the electric utility instead of the 1% that we already had would bring in about the same amount of money. So we're replacing that lost local option sales tax revenue from Clinton with this 2%, with this additional one. It's an additional 1% onto the electric franchise fee. So that's what that change would be. So this is the public hearing portion for people to voice their concerns. I will, if you give me a moment, Your Honor, I will unmute people so they can give their input.
Yeah, that gave me trouble too.
Yeah, go ahead, and very well explained too. Thank you, Andrew.
This may take a minute. We've got a number of people here. Please don't mute yourself. I'm going to unmute all.
Conversation mode on. Everyone
so if
can
you have
be heard.
background noise going, I will mute you. So everybody's unmuted, Your Honor, and this would be the public comment portion on the franchise fee increase to 2%.
Someone's got a lot of background needs to be muted. All right, thank you. This should be the time. If anybody has any issues, any objections, or other concerns regarding the increase in franchise fees, Andrew, I can't hear anything.
I know. Yes, Your Honor. Give me a second. I'm trying to figure out who that is.
There it is.
Yeah, not quite. Someone has their speakerphone on or their computer. That's creating a lot of feedback there. I will figure out who it is here in a second.
Andrew, can I make a suggestion?
I can't hear you. You'll have to wait.
How about you let people, if they have no comment, mute themselves?
Oh, there we go.
Hey. That's better. You figured it out, Andrew? You figured out who it was, where it was coming from?
I believe so. Let me go back and unmute the other people. That's kind of the problem you have when you unmute all. You don't really know who's creating the problem there.
Hey, Andrew?
Yes, sir.
Can you give people the option, like if we have no public comment, can we mute ourselves again when you give us that option, and then if the people that want to speak, then there's not so much interference?
I can do that. It's more difficult for people that are calling in on the phone, Chief, because there's a certain function you have to press *6 or whatever if people want to be heard. So if everybody would just pause for a second, I believe I have the problem resolved. So this would be the public hearing portion if anybody wanted to talk about the change in franchise fee to 2%. If you're going to speak, you have to give your name and address for the record.
All right, well, I'm not hearing any concerns, objections, or other in regard to this public hearing. So I will go ahead and read the ordinance amendment. Well, I guess first we need to close the public hearing.
No, close the public hearing, and that will be read later in the meeting, Your Honor.
Your new business, yep, you're right, I got you. But we can close the public hearing, we have to close the public hearing.
Correct.
With no comment, close public hearing at 6:08. And with that said, we will open a public hearing on the proposed sale of interest in real estate right-of-way between the city of Camanche and Michael A. Kramer. I will let you touch on this a little bit too, Andrew.
Yes, Your Honor, I will share the browser here. This is the piece of property that's concerning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is the piece of property we're talking about here. Here's 2nd Street, and we're talking about vacating this side of 12th Avenue, 20 feet this way, the entire length. This would just be the public's opportunity to object to the sale of land.
Correct. Open that public hearing at 6:08, and if there are any objections or concerns, now would be the time to raise those. People have the ability to speak up now, Andrew.
Yep.
Well, I'm not hearing anything, so hearing nothing, we will close that public hearing at 6:10. And we will go to public comments on agenda topics, keeping in mind that as we broach topics, we will have conversation regarding them.
People are unmuted if they wanted to be
All right.
unmuted, so.
Okay. Thank you. Again, hearing nothing, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Bowman, so moved.
Bryman, second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on any of the individual items? Hearing none. Roll call, please, Tony.
Yes, Weller,
Danny
Are you
was
muted, Dan?
Yep.
I must have been. I vote yes.
Varner,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Brightman,
Yes.
Councilman Weller, I'm
All right, thank you.
remuting you. Danny, you have a lot of background noise going on at your location, so that's creating an issue. So you have to unmute yourself when you wish to talk.
All right.
Okay. No unfinished business. So first up under new business is first reading to amend ordinance chapter 3-1-5, section 6, subsection A of the Camanche Code of the City Ordinance, Public Health and Safety, Discharge of Firearms and Fireworks. This was kind of brought to my attention here a while back, and knowing that hunting season was quickly approaching, I thought that we needed to get this cleared up. We have, just for a little background, we have discovered several ordinances that have been changed through the codification process that were not necessarily the intent of the council at the, well, I shouldn't say that. As happenstance has it, it turned out that some of these got changed, I don't think, with any intent. So we've run across this before and we need to get this straightened out. So with that being said, did you want to take this, Andrew?
I can, and we'll get some help from legal to help discuss this.
Yeah.
So the one of the items that's been removed or added to the current code, which was adopted in 2019, but I'm finding that I believe this was also done back in 2009. Is the language that says no discharge of firearms in city limits. So some of the research we did found that in 2008 the code did not have that language, and one of the other areas that we ended up finding today in that old code about the discharge of firearms was that it stated no person shall discharge any pistol, gun, or firearm of any kind within the city limits except a police officer within the discharge of police officer's duties, or in public celebrations, exhibitions, entertainments, or when used at properly organized gun clubs, which shall have made application to the city council, permission for the same having been authorized and allowed by said city council, and also accepting therefrom the discharge of a shotgun so long as the shotgun is not discharged within 150 yards of a dwelling house. So that's what the old code used to say. That language was removed except for the requirement to give city council approval to have a firing range, which is what that information says now. So the goal here was to change the code to at least allow for, to change our city ordinance to at least allow for hunting in city limits as has traditionally been done in the rural areas of the city limits, but also with the state requirements and state guidelines as to where you do it and how you do it and what requirements there are for that as well.
Anything additional from John and Randy at this time?
Your Honor, this is John. The council has seen our comments, and I don't want to reiterate everything that's there, but perhaps for some members of the public, I'd like to just give a brief overview of what we provided to the council, if that's okay.
Sure.
So what we find in researching this issue is there are essentially three groups of approaches that cities have taken to carrying loaded firearms or discharging firearms in the city limits. Since 2012, Camanche has not, by ordinance, allowed the discharge of weapons in the city limits. Now, it probably, as the mayor pointed out, was adopted in 2012 as part of a code revision. We did revisit that section when the state passed the fireworks legislation. It's in the same section, and we did not change it other than to deal with the fireworks ordinance at that time. Cities, there are some cities like Davenport and Marion, Iowa, for example, who have the same approach that Camanche presently has, and that is that discharge of firearms is not permitted within the city limits. Then there are other cities, and we didn't do an exhaustive research, but we just wanted to see how other people were dealing with it. So, for example, the city of Tiffin, Iowa, a small town out near Iowa City, essentially just says that anything that's permitted under state law is permitted in Tiffin. And the city of Clinton is similar in terms of what they have done. They have provided that the discharge of firearms in the city limits is not permitted except as otherwise authorized by state law. Now, what generally is permitted under state law, there are a couple of code sections that deal with it, but generally you're not allowed to, they start off with, you're not allowed to carry a loaded firearm in the city limits. And then they have some exceptions for that, which includes law enforcement, and it includes lawful hunting and target practice, which is permitted by the city on a public target range or otherwise by the city or county ordinance. Another group of cities has taken kind of a compromise or a third approach, I guess, which is to impose some stricter limitations above and beyond what the state imposes. Des Moines and Dubuque are examples of that. And one of the common things that these cities have done is to limit it to shotguns rather than allowing use of 22 or handguns and revolvers or high-powered rifles in the city limits. Or if you're a hunter or a shooter, you have a general knowledge that shotguns don't carry as far as rifles or pistols. State law prohibits discharging a firearm within 200 yards of an inhabited structure, so that in a number of places where you have residential density in a city, you're not going to be able to discharge a firearm because you won't be able to get more than 200 yards away from inhabited buildings or structures or farm feedlots. And there are other limitations under state law for people who are shooting on their own property and some of those things that enter into it. What we found with the cities that had what I call kind of the compromise ordinance is that one of the major focuses were the type of weapons that you could use and the type of ammunition, for example.
As joined.
Even if you could use a shotgun, you weren't able to use buckshot or rifled slugs, which can carry further than most commonly used shot for hunting birds and small animals. So that's kind of where we are in terms of what other folks have done. We try to provide counsel with that framework so that depending on the direction, we can craft the appropriate ordinance. There's been some suggestion that the language that was proposed originally, which is inserting in accordance with Iowa Code 481A 123. That's the code section that prohibits discharge of a firearm within 200 yards of a building, and then it goes on to have some other provisions in it. But at least one attorney has questioned whether that language is sufficient because the city ordinance already prohibits the use of firearms within the city limits, and if you're using an ordinance which also prohibits discharge of firearms within 200 yards of a building, you're not really allowing the discharge of firearms. We've looked at that, and we don't think that that's a valid objection, but we might want to clarify the language. Because under the law, if a statute prohibits something, which this statute does, it prohibits shooting within 200 yards of a building. If the statute doesn't prohibit anything else, then the other actions are presumed to be included. So in this case, you can't shoot within 200 yards of a building, but as long as you're more than 200 yards away, under that statute, you're authorized to shoot other state law permits it. And in this case, other state law does permit carrying a firearm for purposes of hunting. So I've talked a lot. If there are questions, I'd be happy to deal with those questions or try to answer those questions.
Yeah, I'll start off here, John. One thing I see is that you had opined that this language could be confusing because Section 481A 123 does not permit hunting, but I think we could rectify that with clarity in our own language, correct?
Yes, that would be. That we suggested some additional language there, Your Honor. And by the way, it's good to hear your voice again.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
What we provided was that we could just say, except for lawful hunting permitted by state law and subject to the provisions of Iowa Code 481A 123. So we would there be specific that we are permitting hunting, and that hunting would be conducted in accordance with the provisions of 481A 123. So that would be a relatively simple language change that would make it clear that lawful hunting would be permitted.
Yeah, and I think let me talk to the council and see where they're at, because I think the idea behind this was we had always had a provision, and we had allowed the hunting in the city limits where there was adequate room for that. And I thought, we had some discussion prior to me going out about this, knowing that hunting season was coming up. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that I think the council was on board. It's not something that we want to take away from those folks who have that land within the city limits. Is that a fair assessment, council members?
I think it is. This is Garner, Your Honor. I think that is a fair assessment. I just want to make sure that folks like John Thomas and Mark Cross, they want to go out and hunt within the limits of state law, that they have that right to do it, and they can carry any weapon that they want to within the law. And also, too, they can give permission for somebody to hunt their land if they so desire.
Okay, anyone else have any input?
Your Honor, this is Bowman. And I agree with Councilman Varner. We should be allowing hunting within the city limits. However, I believe we should be thinking about which weapons we're going to allow to be discharged within the city limits. I am in total agreement. I have experience with high-powered weapons. For everybody has experienced high-powered rifles, and they will certainly carry further than 200 yards. And I think the Dubuque language is pretty good. We don't need to adopt everything they've done, but the Dubuque language regarding the use of shotguns and limiting the ammunition, I think is good language. I think we should be thinking about restricting the use to weapons which would be less likely to carry into somebody's house from a distance.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Councilman Bowman. One issue that arises in my mind as a result of that is going to be the use of slugs for deer hunting on properties. I don't know. Sergeant Schmitz, I thought I saw you were here, and Chief Reed. Can you guys give me some sort of comment on the issues with allowing slugs and anything we've had in the past, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, this is Sergeant Schmitz. As always, the most dangerous season that we have statewide is the shotgun deer season, which the DNR a few years ago instituted the use of rifle calibers during that same season. So I do have a concern with slugs and the use of those they're not necessarily high-powered rifles, but there are certain rifle cartridges that are people are able to use during that same deer hunting season. Of all the gun-related calls that we've had in Camanche, I would say 90% of them are during that gun deer season. We've never had any injuries that I know about. 15 years I've been with it. Generally, that season is probably the one I worry about the most. All the newer deer slopes, muzzle loaders are also allowed during that season, and all them rifle calibers are all capable up to 200 yards, in excess of 200. What about recreational shooting?
I'm losing you, Rich. I can't hear you.
Yeah, Rich, you're breaking up on us there.
Recreational.
Rich, you're absolutely breaking up on us.
We're not picking you up. I don't believe anyone else is either. It's hard to hear you. So I don't want you to waste your time repeating everything twice.
Yes, now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, my last concern outside of the shotgun deer season and the different calibers and uses and rifles and whatnot, what about the recreational shooting outside of hunting seasons and allowing that? You know, people can have adequate backstops on the property that safely be at outside of
Rich, if you're on a speakerphone, you probably need to pick up the handset.
Not on the speakerphone, on our computer. I don't know what the issue is. It's worked every other week.
Okay. So I think your last point there, Rich, was about people with adequate backstops and a firing range. And there is still a provision for that, but they need permission from city council to do that under the current ordinance.
And I think with that caveat that city council has got to approve something of a rate like that, I don't will each piece individually and see how that goes. I agree with Rich, and the problem is that the state did allow to start using rifles for deer hunting season. That's scary to me too. 200 yards is not a long ways, folks. You can a hell of a lot farther than that. Something to take into consideration. I don't know where we want to go with this or what your thoughts are. If you want to allow this, if it's something that we can always have this first reading and make amendments and come back for the second reading. Maybe have a little more discussion regarding it. What do the council members think as far as the hunting and the slugs and the rifles and stuff? Rich's point.
Can you hear me? Danny.
Yeah. Yes.
I just like I agree with Councilman Barnes. Laws.
Danny, we can't hear you. Somebody on the phone line is feeding back into the system, and I'm going to start muting people until we figure out who it is. So if someone on the phone is on speakerphone, you're going to have to mute yourself or take yourself off of speakerphone. There you go. Whoever just did that, thank you very much.
Yep. So say that again, Dan.
I just like to say I'm in agreement with Councilman Varner. I think as long as they are within the Iowa codes and laws, that they should be able to use whatever weapons they have.
Just a question, Your Honor.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Have we had a problem with this? I mean, is it frequent that houses are getting hit and heaven forbid somebody's gotten shot? Have we had problems with this in the past? Because I don't remember when I was working.
No, right, and I don't think that's the case. I think Rich made the point that this is he gets the most calls at this time of year when this season going on, which I understand. I don't think it's that we've had people being shot or houses being shot or something of that nature, but I also know that the recent expansion of this to include rifles, to me, is scary. I don't have a problem. Maybe we could limit it to the slugs for deer season or whatever, but I'm not comfortable with having projectiles from rifles flying about the city limits.
Mr. Mayor, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
This is Sergeant Schmitz again. The one caveat I would recommend is allowing any firearm that's allowed during the firearm deer season to be used. They've done their research. That's why they've allowed some of those rifle cartridges. They're straight-walled cartridges. They're not typically a high-powered rifle. So the DNR has more research than we ever will, and they're allowing those in those gun seasons, those deer seasons, and I don't see why we shouldn't as well. But other cartridges, maybe outside of those straight-wall cartridges that are not allowed during the deer season, maybe those are some cartridges that would be disallowed or not allowed in our ordinance.
Okay, and I think that language is easily constructed, I believe. So from a safety standpoint, I know that you have concerns, but I also know that people hunt and people are going to continue to hunt, and we've had them hunt within the city limits from day one. So from a concern standpoint, and knowing you're a hunter also, Sergeant Schmitz, what is your take on this and as far as allowing the hunting within the city limits?
Like Councilman Varner stated, we've had no injuries ever that I'm aware of related to hunting. People have hunted, deer hunted, every other kind of hunting in Camanche for forever. I grew up hunting here when I was young. So stopping it now based on just this ordinance, I think would be pretty sad. So we just need
I would agree with that. I wanted to make sure I had your input on that for sure. So if, are we looking at, are you suggesting any changes to the current language that we are going to amend here right now? So we can have this reading, we can make the changes and bring it back for a second reading at the next meeting.
Yeah, I would say any firearm lawfully used during any other hunting season in the state of Iowa should be legal to use in our ordinance as well. Then I think you really do need to address the recreational shooting though as well, because there's some.
Yes, I think that's a separate, a separate section of the same ordinance maybe, but I agree with that. That needs to be addressed as well, and we can do that too. Any other comments, questions, or concerns regarding this from the council or legal or Andrew?
I would just be looking for something from legal to amend the wording that is presented so we can have a first reading that somewhat resembles the second reading. So if we have to come back at the second reading and amend it, we can. So John Fry, if you had some suggested language, I would appreciate that.
This is Bowman. I believe that's already been provided to us in the letter.
Well, there is, but there were a lot of suggestions provided in the letter too. So
yes,
I think as far as where's the one about the rifles?
This is John, Your Honor. I think what Councilman Bowman is referring to is the alternate language that we suggested on page 5 of the letter, except for lawful hunting permitted by state law, subject to the provisions of Code 481A 123. That would expressly allow hunting in accordance with state law. It would not limit the weapons or the ammunition, and if the council intends to have some limit. I've heard some concerns expressed about rifles, and handguns also kind of will carry certainly further than the 200-yard limitation. There might be some, at least consideration, and you'll have some public input, whether you want rifles or handguns to be permitted or not.
Right. Well, I think given Rich's testimony about the research that the DNR does and the fact that these are not high-powered rifles, that we should allow that at a minimum. I still don't believe we should allow pistols and handguns. That's personal. That's me.
I think what Sergeant Smith was referring to was weapons that are allowed to be used during the gun deer season in Iowa.
Correct.
Which does not necessarily include high-powered hunting rifles.
No, it does not include high-powered hunting rifles. That's correct. It does include rifles, though, and that he suggested that because they are not any more powerful than a shotgun with a slug, that we should allow them for the hunting season as well. That was what I gathered.
And Sergeant Smith, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Can you clarify for both the mayor and I what you were referring to in terms of guns that were allowed during the hunting season?
The DNR website has a great PDF document that shows which weapons and which cartridges can be used during the deer gun season. The deer gun season does allow muzzleloaders as well as pistols of certain calibers, along with those straight wall cartridges. So pistols are included, and you are able to use those in several of the gun deer seasons.
Okay.
So it is your suggestion that we incorporate into the ordinance the guns that are allowed under that DNR website during deer season would be permitted?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I gathered.
I think we're making this too.
Who's that?
Danny, I think we're making things a little bit too complicated here. I like John's language before he started adding all this other stuff in there. You know, just that they can use their weapons and within the codes and laws, and leave it at that.
Yeah, it makes sense if you're following state law. I mean, they've done a lot more research than we have, as Sergeant Smith had said.
Right. I don't dispute any of this, you guys. I really don't. I just know that state code is rather lengthy, and I thought maybe if we could further restrict it to get it down to where it's, but following state code is following state code. We can do that as well. So that's up to the council.
I think we start tweaking a bunch of things, but we're just going to make it more complicated for people to understand.
You could, but given that the number one consideration in all of this is public safety, I would rather take the time to go through all of these discussions and whatever tweaking is needed. Because we're talking about this, we're talking about doing it safely and responsibly. We're talking about having not had an issue. I don't want to have an issue on my watch. So I have no problem taking the time that it needs to get this right.
So, Your Honor, this is Brightman.
Yes, sir.
So, I don't know much about the hunting codes and all this stuff, but does the state law, does that, I'm assuming it takes into, firing off 4 years limits. Is that a fact? I mean, are they just saying that everybody's going to be out in the middle of a cornfield, not near the city limits? I mean, I don't know.
I guess I didn't catch the total question, Brent. I didn't get what you were asking.
So the state law, does that cover, when they make these laws up, are they taking into consideration that these could be used next to city limits or within city limits range? Or are they just saying that, everybody's gonna be out in the middle of a cornfield or out in the middle of a tree somewhere shooting these guns off? I mean, are they taking the proximity close to city, are they taking that into consideration or not?
Yes, except for it doesn't look like that the amended language is taking that into consideration, is it?
Right.
Oh,
So, Your Honor, what I've done is on the screen that we're sharing, I've changed the language and highlighted it for the exception as recommended by legal to accommodate what the request was.
Yeah, they did.
So if we were to adopt this, which
yes.
allows for lawful hunting, this could be the amended
I
first
like
reading, and we can move
I
forward.
like that language better.
I do. I like that.
Is legal okay with that?
Your Honor, we're fine with whatever the council wants to do. We've outlined the parameters, and it's a policy decision for the council at this point. If the council wants, it sounds like, I'm hearing from two or three, if the council wants language that allows within the city limits hunting as permitted by state law, which the language that's highlighted before you would permit, then that is the language we would recommend to accomplish that objective.
Okay, that's all I wanted, because it was just a little different than your sample language. I just wanted to make sure you were good with it, because to me it makes more sense the way this is. It actually refers to lawful hunting. So
yeah, the sample language was an initial attempt by the administrator to put something on the table. The language that you highlighted is the language that we suggested as an alternative for perhaps a little more clarity.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm good. And where's the council at on this? You good with where we're at with this as far as? Yes.
This is
Councilman Carter. Okay. All right, well, let me,
So, Your Honor, there was somebody had put in here about squirrel season.
22s.
Yeah, did you see that message?
I did not, but I know.
I see that in the chat. Someone typed squirrel season may different as well, a 22 rifle. Well.
Yeah, I know. We used to shoot squirrels with a 22 when I was a kid too, so I don't know.
Yes, a 22 rifle would be permitted under state law for a squirrel and for a rabbit. And, there's no prohibition against using a 22 rifle
there you go.
for hunting of animals under state law, to my knowledge. And that's one of the things, if you don't want a 22 to be used, or if you don't want other weapons to be used in the city limits, you would need to modify the ordinance to include a limitation.
Your Honor, it seems like maybe Sergeant Schmitz has his hand raised to say something.
What was that? I missed it.
Hey, this is Rich again.
Okay, go ahead, Rich.
Just to comment on Bobby Eden's comments. Any lawful hunting season, there's a number of seasons that would allow any firearm whatsoever. To be honest, you could use it under Iowa law. You could use a 300 Winchester Magnum, a super high-powered rifle, to hunt squirrels. It's not against the law. So, like the attorneys had indicated, if you guys want to restrict any of those higher-powered rifles, you'd have to do that specifically by calendar. But I do think between shooting a rifle up in the air and someone trapping, shooting a 20-foot caliber rifle, 20 feet is whatever's in their trap too.
I think.
So what are we gonna have to examine? Are we gonna have to examine every hunting season and what's allowed and what's not? And I mean, we didn't want to make a new book out of this ordinance.
So just remember, there's criminal law already out there for reckless use of a firearm. So if someone's not being safe and there's property damage or injury as a result, there's a statute for that already, reckless use of a firearm.
This is Varner. I can go back and be wrong.
But it's only unlawful, correct, if there's a law against it. So unless we restrict it restrict these high-powered rifles during these other hunting seasons, we're going to be allowing them, will we not be?
That's correct.
So
yes, as long as they're used safely, Your Honor. The reckless use of a firearm is something that Randy has mentioned several times as the overall safety valve if people are using any weapon in the city and they use it recklessly, even if it's permitted, reckless use is not permitted under state law and would be a criminal offense. There you go.
Okay.
Any other
comments?
Randy Curran, I guess, has something to say, but I can't. He's not on the speaker, so I saw his hand raised, but
you need to unmute him, I think.
He has no microphone to unmute.
Yeah, I think he can.
My screen says viewing only, no audio connected. So Randy, if you wanted to call in to speak, that might be a better option for you.
Let me call him, and I'll see if I can.
Yeah,
Your Honor, I think we've got most of the answers.
I think you're right, Brent. I would agree with that. I just wanted to make sure, we get this right. So we're not revisiting this here in a couple of weeks, or a couple of months, or a couple of years. Yeah, I think, and I'm on board with everything you guys have said. We just want to make sure that we continue to allow what we've always allowed, but we also have to maintain the safety of our citizens as well, and that's where I'm at. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, so at this point, I would suggest, Your Honor, that you do the first reading of the ordinance as amended on the screen.
Yeah. Yes, sir. This is an ordinance amending the Camanche, Iowa Municipal Code by amending Chapter 3-1-5, Section 6, subsection A of the Camanche Code of Ordinances. Section 1 purpose. The purpose of this ordinance is to amend the Camanche Municipal Code by modifying the Public Health and Safety Ordinance to allow the discharge of firearms in city limits when acting in accordance with Iowa Code 481A.123. Section 2 facts found. The City Council of the City of Camanche, Iowa hereby makes the following findings of fact. 1. The City of Camanche, Iowa Code of Ordinances was codified in 2019. 2, Chapter 3-1-5, Section 6, subsection A was adopted and has not allowed the discharging of firearms in city limits. 3, there was no intent to limit hunting in the rural areas within the city limits. And 4, Iowa State Code 481A.123 provides guidance for hunting and discharge of firearms. Section 3, the amendment, Chapter 3-1-5, Section 6, subsection A is amended and the following language is inserted in lieu thereof. Number 6, discharging firearms and fireworks. A, No person, firm, or corporation shall discharge or fire any cannon, gun, bomb, pistol, air gun, or other firearms except for lawful hunting permitted by state law subject to the provisions of Iowa Code 481.A.123, fireworks, or any other device containing explosives. Consumer fireworks deemed legal under Code of Iowa 727.2 are allowed on July 4th between the hours of 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. only. The fine for violation of this ordinance shall be no less than $250. Section 4, repealer. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with any provision of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 5, severability. If any section, provision, or part of this ordinance shall be adjudged invalid or unconstitutional, such adjudication shall not affect this ordinance as a whole or any section, provision, or part thereof not adjudicated invalid or unconstitutional. So there is the first reading of the amended firearms ordinance, and I would...
Randy Current.
Hey, Randy, you got something to say?
No, I got disconnected, so.
Okay.
I've been listening. I for some reason I couldn't do my video or my audio through the video, but I had been on the phone connection and watching and listening to all of you. So, yeah, I was just going to point out things like, and I don't know if anybody does coyote hunting out there or anything. So, yeah. As Sergeant Schmitz has pointed out, there's a lot of different things that high-powered weapons could be used to lawfully hunt. So,
yep.
That was my only concern. And again, you're dealing only with hunting. I was contacted by a property owner's representative out there about doing target shooting, and that isn't apparently going to be addressed tonight. So,
well, I think that that's part of it. We need to address that in a separate section. I mean, to me, target shooting comes into the whole range discussion.
Absolutely, Your Honor. That's already addressed in the current code. So,
yeah. All righty. Thank you, sir. So with that being said, I would entertain a motion for the approval of the first reading of this ordinance amendment.
Varner, so move. Bowman, second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please, Tony.
Bowman,
Yes.
Brightman,
Yes.
Varner,
Yes.
Weller,
Yes.
All right, thank you, guys. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we had the discussion we needed to have. So, the next up under new business, we had first reading to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Camanche, Iowa by amending the electric franchise fee of 2%. I have that somewhere.
It's on your screen, Your Honor.
There you go. I'll just do that. This is an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Camanche, Iowa by amending the electric franchise. Whereas the City of Camanche, Iowa and Mid-American Energy Company entered into franchise agreement for electric under Ordinance 707, adopted by the City Council on September 7, 2010. And whereas the City of Camanche codified the city ordinances to set Ordinance 707 as Title 7, Chapter 3. And whereas the City of Camanche and Mid-American Energy Company agree the franchise must be amended, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Camanche, Iowa as follows. 1, that Section 14 of Ordinance 7-3 being Section 14, the city reserves the right to impose a franchise fee in a manner and amount consistent with state law, is hereby struck and the following Section 14 is substituted therefore. Section 14, a franchise fee of 2% is imposed upon and shall be collected from the electric customers of the company receiving service and located within the corporate limits of the city. The franchise fee shall be imposed upon the gross receipts minus uncollectible accounts generated from sales of electricity and distribution services. The company will commence collecting franchise fees on or before the first company billing cycle of the first calendar month following 90 days of receipt of information required of the city to implement the franchise fee. The company shall have no obligation to collect franchise fees from customers in annexed areas until and unless such ordinances have been provided to the company by certified mail. The company shall not, under any circumstances, be required to return or refund any franchise fees that have been collected from customers and remitted to the city. City accounts are exempted. So that's pretty self-explanatory, and unless there are any other questions or concerns, I would entertain a motion accepting this ordinance, the first reading of this ordinance amendment, excuse me.
Weller, so moved.
Bowman, second.
A motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please, Tony.
Varner,
Yes.
Brightman,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Weller,
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next under new business, adopt a resolution amending sanitary sewer rates for customers of the Camanche Municipal Sanitary Sewer System. So this is a resolution amending the sanitary sewer rates for customers of the Camanche Municipal Sanitary Sewer System. Whereas the Camanche, Iowa Code of Ordinances adopted by the City of Camanche on November 19, 2019 provides that sanitary sewer rates shall be established by resolution of the City Council. And whereas having reviewed the current sanitary sewer rate schedule, the City Council finds that the current rates are less than adequate to meet the needs of the municipal sanitary sewer system. And whereas having considered various rate proposals, the City Council finds that increasing the sanitary sewer rate is in order. Now therefore be it resolved that the sanitary sewer rates for the customers of the Camanche Municipal Sanitary Sewer System are hereby established as follows. 1, effective August 25th, 2020, the minimum charge for sanitary sewer service shall remain $25.26 per quarter. 2, effective August 25th, 2020, the charge for water usage in excess of the 4,000 gallons included in the minimum charge shall be increased from 46.5 cents to 48.5 cents per 100 gallons used. Be it further resolved that all other charges are to remain as per Camanche City Ordinance 699 adopted September 1, 2009. So that was pretty easy and self-explanatory. We've had the explanation. We know where the